What's up, YouTube? Welcome to another question and answer series. Where I'm going to be covering one question from Ian from ages ago on a comment section. I just want to talk about one thing, not for too long. I was watching one of Umar Surf's videos from a while ago. He was talking about his deadlift, and he had a scheduled workout, and he wasn't feeling great, but he went ahead and did the workout anyway. This is something I think a lot of people struggle with sometimes, or when people talk about stuff like autoregulatory periodization, also known as going too heavy or going too light or just doing whatever you fancy. Um, like, have you ever pay any attention to any reactive training system stuff or Mike Tushner stuff? Um, he works off RPEs and has a very good system that he puts in place, um, where you'll go to a certain level of intensity based off perceived rate of exertion or RPE. So you might have a 9 workout where you're going to a 9 out of 10 on a squat or a deadlift or whatever. And if you're feeling good, it's going to be heavier, and if you're not feeling so good, it's going to be lighter. And this, for most people, I think, is a fairly untenable system because one, people probably don't have um, the experience or the knowledge within themselves to do a genuine 9 out of 10, or if it's a 7 out of 10. Some people will be tempted to go higher. They might be tempted to push to an 8 out of 10 or a 9 out of 10 when they should be taking an easy session. Some people might not be so inclined to go heavy, so they might actually perform a 7.5 out of 10 when it should be a 9 out of 10. Um, certainly would be a sort of system that would require someone to take a lot of time and effort to actually get used to how it works. What I'm going to advocate is just good old percentage training. I know it's what Boris Shilkos uses almost exclusively, or pretty much exclusively, and he's produced more IPF gold medals than anyone else on the face of the planet. So it must work to some extent. I know a lot of the old Russian kind of base training was based off like 70s, 80s, and 90s, based off percentage based training. I spent a lot of time trying to work out what was the optimal dosage for the competition lifts. I can't remember, but I was reading Sport Nail Press talking about this subject. If you haven't come across Sport Nail Press, put it into Google and start reading because it's got some great stuff. It can be a little bit in depth for some people, but it does have some of the best information you're going to come across on strength training anywhere on the internet. So definitely worth a look if you haven't checked it out. But basically, on the WHO, their optimal dose was 5, 6 to 2 at 9%. Obviously, between weightlifting and powerlifting, there are differences. Weightlifting is much more of a neural sport. It's much more of a skill acquisition sport, whereas powerlifting, there's a lot more just gross effort and what I call mechanical effort, but basically muscular effort. So hypertrophy plays a bigger role within powerlifting due to the lesser levels of skill required to perform the lifts. Just having bigger muscles and producing bigger, stronger muscles pretty much 9 times out of 10 produces better performance, whereas in weightlifting, producing a bigger, stronger leg doesn't necessarily go into like a better snatch or a better clean because it doesn't address the timing, the flexibility, the blah, blah, blah. There's a lot more going on within weightlifting, within snatch and clean and jerk, that just simply getting stronger legs or bigger legs is going to make you a better weightlifter, whereas in powerlifting, that's pretty much the case. So yeah, I kind of got off tangent here anyway. If you program correctly, where if you sequence your training, where you've a planned hard session, a planned easy session, you have volume going into intensity over cyclically over periods of time, you're never really going to get to the position where you're going to be asked to do a percentage or a sets and rep scheme that's going to not be achievable. If you do it properly and use your percentage training correctly, you're never not going to miss. You're never not going to make a workout. It's just not going to happen because you're going to consistently be under that kind of marker. You're going to be holding yourself back slightly all the time. You're never going to so annoying when that happens. You're never really going to come to a point where you're pushing at 100% of capacity. You're always going to be under capacity, and you're going to let the volume build up to your volume is going to be your overload, not your intensity of effort. So you're not going to go for like rep PBs all the time. You're not going to go for 1RMs all the time. You're going to do a volume dose sequence correctly, so that at the end of that training cycle, you're going to be fitter and stronger, and then you're going to start a new training cycle, or you're preparing for a comp. Like in some aspects, like in some instances, if you handle your percentage training correctly, then in a competition you might be in a position where you have to try to dig something out of yourself. Maybe you need 5 kilos heavier than you're planned on deadlift for the win, and you're on the last attempt. So then you put it on the bar and try it, because if you don't pull it, you're not going to win, and obviously you'll want to win. Probably the best example of this kind of philosophy is Carl from Norway, or Denmark. Norway or Denmark, I can't remember. I think it's Denmark. That's pretty bad. One, shit pronunciation. Two, pretty bad remembrance of that guy, of where he's from. But anyway, Dennis Wolf's his coach, and they advocate like a higher frequency stuff. I think I've talked about it before. Train 6 days a week and do variations of the lift 6 days a week, low volume, low intensity. And that's a guy who breaks world records every time he steps on a platform and always looks like he's got more to give. That for me is perfect handling of like a powerlifting athlete, where they're always improving on their performances, and they always look like there's more to give on those performances. If you constantly undercook yourself and improve while undercooking yourself, you're never going to come to the point where you're grinding reps. You're never going to come to the point where you're going to feel beat up, you feel like shit. You're going to feel like you're training, and you're not going to feel great all the time, because training is a stress response. So you're always going to be a little bit sore, always going to be a little bit tired. But if you program correctly and undercook yourself, you're going to come into the gym days and you're not going to feel great, but you're still going to make the workout. You'll always make the workout, because it's always going to be programmed in a manner that means that you can make those loads. So if percentage training is done correctly, in my opinion, it is far superior to RPE based training, because it's much more precise, and it guarantees like a long-term progression. And obviously Mike Tushner is a great lifter, is a much better lifter than I am, probably a much better coach than I am, but weight of evidence would suggest that volume-based training for IPF is a better. But then maybe Boris just has many more lifters and a better pool of lifters, and they're technically better and whatever. There's loads of other circumstances, but my own personal preference would be percentage-based training. And if you come into the gym and you have a set workout and you're not feeling up to it, strap on a pair and get on with it. If you fail the workout, then you fail the workout. Fuck it, it doesn't really matter. Then there's something really up. Maybe you're coming down with the flu, or you've got an injury, in which case you've got bigger problems then. Not like undercooking your work, like not doing your sets and your reps. Ian's question was high bar squat. Why do I high bar squat? Basically, the way I was taught from beforehand. I was self-taught before I started lifting, like 2006, 2007. So T-Nation was a thing. YouTube wasn't really a thing. I didn't really know where to go for good information, so I didn't really have a lot of technical input. I was just kind of self-taught. I come from like a rugby background. I played rugby for 10 years. Didn't really have never really went to the gym with anyone who knew what they were doing. Never stretched, never did any mobility, never did any gymnastics other than fleetingly. Did some martial arts when I was younger, but not to any kind of serious level. Quit when I was like 13, so my mobility, stretching background was poor. I tried to squat and my mobility was poor, and I struggled with squat for the longest time until I actually got some coaching when I came up to Edinburgh to do my master's in strength and conditioning. I worked with a strength and conditioning coach based here who basically taught me how to do everything. Taught me how to squat, taught me how to clean, taught me how to snatch. And he taught me how to high bar squat. So that's when I started competing in powerlifting in 2007. I was taught high bar, and I just squatted high bar forever, pretty much. As such, it has been my preferred movement when it comes to squat. I don't think it's superior to low bar squat. Whatever means I'm going to shift the most weight is the superior way of doing it. So I have messed around with high bar squat or low bar squat or lower bar positions. One of the biggest breakthroughs in my squat was in like 2011 when I started training with a powerlifter who put the bar down, or told me to put the bar down about 2 inches down on my back. So we're still trying to squat with a high bar, like lower body mechanics, but my bar was actually was a slightly lower position, and that led to pretty much a 20 kilo jump in my squat pretty much straight away. So that was sweet. And I have messed around with low bar before. There was one session last year when I put the bar quite low down, probably across there, like lower. So I typically hold the bar about here, and I put the bar down kind of across the back of the delt. Did some sets with like 180, felt really strong. Did a couple sets with 220, got a little bit boisterous, chucked 240 on. Bearing in mind, this is almost like immediately post the hip injury, so I'd only be back in the squatting for not a long time, maybe about 3 months, 4 months. The heaviest I'd gone in training was probably like 220, 210. I was doing it for a few reps, but not heavy. Chucked on 240. Was confident that I was going to absolutely smash the weight. Sat down, stood up, and are cracking all up the left hand side of my back. God knows how I finished the rep, but I did complete it. Put it back in, and then had to lie down for the best part of like 10 minutes before I could get up again. And then I could barely squat the next day. Whatever it was, went away, thank God, through a mixture of foam rolling, pause squat, and box squat. But yeah, that was an interesting experience. I have started paying a bit more attention to the lower bar squatting. I'm still, if you watch kind of that 230 video I put up on Monday, it's not necessarily a low bar, it is a lower bar, but that feels like a pretty good style for me. I think I could go lower still, because I feel when I stand up out of the bottom I still get a little bit of torso bow. I'm not standing straight up. I do feel like I do battle with it a little bit, but I can battle with it, and I think that's the big difference for me is with that bar position, whereas beforehand with squat it would feel like it was easier, it just wasn't happening. Whereas with the lower bar, it gives me a little bit of play, gives me a little bit of fight, and I can start grinding, which is both a good thing and a bad thing, because it means I can train much more volume, but it's also a bad thing because it means I can keep going and keep going and keep going. In which case, my mind allows fuck's sake, sound like an American here. Basically the limit is how hard you want to push yourself, it feels like, with the low bar. So I feel like I can actually push myself to the point where my back gives out, or I just can't physically stand up for the weight, which is maybe probably a bad thing for my body injury wise, but it's a good thing for strength, so it's all good. That's going to conclude this question and answer episode 15. I don't know. Send me some questions, and then you like answers, speedpowerperformance@gmail.com. If you'd like this retard to write your program, swing over to castironstrength.com, check it out. If you want some online coaching, maybe I can snap you up with some percentage-based training, then shoot an email, speedpowerperformance@gmail.com. I am intending to get more YouTube content out. Being a lot more active, as you probably noticed over the last couple of days, so hopefully we can get some more subscribers. So if you know anyone who likes lifting stuff, they like beards, hopefully I'll still have this beard come next video, and I wouldn't be too sure of that. Hit them up. Hope you've been enjoying the PB Machine podcast, trying to get the iTunes feed sorted. Getting on to iTunes straight after this to get that hopefully cooking. pbmachine.org. We're now selling t-shirts. You'll find your URL in the description. Until next time, this has been Mark, castironstrength.com, signing off. Until next time.